Hey, what's up, everybody? Back again for some more Twin Peaks episode reviews. Season 2, Episode 1. We're left with quite the cliffhanger at the end of Season 1. And the Season 2, Episode 1 was 90 minutes plus length, so there's a heck of a lot going on. Getting some more insight into what's going on in the waking world and the world of the supernatural and the subconscious. So a lot of good stuff. So let's not dilly-dally any longer and get right into it. All right, so we're back again at the Great Northern. As you recall, Dale was shot 3 times point blank by a mystery shooter at the end of the last episode of season 1. We see him laying there. He's either dead or unconscious. We hear Andy calling out for him from the telephone. There's a lot of blood pooled up around his waistline, but we also see that there are 2 bullet contact points that hit his chest higher up that didn't cause bleeding, so we can assume that he's probably wearing some kind of bulletproof vest. A very old waiter comes in with a glass of warm milk that he ordered from room service. Albert will lovingly refer to him as Senior Drool Cup. So yeah, he's an interesting character, and his interaction with Dale during this scene is both comical and oddball, and it's intentionally done this way, not merely just for the humor aspect of it, as it's kind of an awkward, drawn out type of thing. But that his character, the old man that is not a one and done. We will see him later on. So yeah, that is something to keep in mind. And especially the absurdity of how he shows his reaction. This old guy comes in and sees someone laying on the floor that's been shot 3 times and is telling him, he needs a sign in the receipt for his order, and that he lets him know that gratuity is included, and it's a funny scene. It's a good way to segue into the next part in the typical Twin Peaks bizarre fashion. And so the old man, aka Senior Drool Cup, and Dale exchange a few thumbs up, and then enters the giant. And this scene is extremely important. Of course, we'll start off the second season with something of a great gravity, where the aspect of the supernatural is concerned. And the giant asks a very important question, or at least a retort to what Dale asks. He says, "The question is, where have you gone?" So we can assume that Dale is once again traveled either in the subconscious or in his mind, somewhere between the waking world and the world of dreams. And this is at a place where we have seen other entities, such as the one-armed man, Mike, and Bob, the psycho killer type guy. So this giant is also apparently residing within that similar, ethereal space or whatnot. So he's definitely got an important part to play, given that he decides to present his and make himself visible now, to reveal himself to Dale, so to speak. And again, we've got some more clues from the dream world to convey to Dale. One is there's a man in a smiling bag. Very odd. Second, the owls are not what they seem, which is a kind of a famous line that a lot of people will immediately associate with Twin Peaks. And remember, we have seen the owls looking down at James and Donna at their little hideaway spot where they buried the necklace, and then the log lady also mentioned the owls. So the owls are, again, being described as being tricksters, or something that is, or putting on an appearance of being something that they really aren't. So the owls become more important as we go along. We have the clue, without chemicals, he points, and not really much to go on as far as that goes. So we'll have to see how that plays out and what that refers to. And then the giant says, "This is all I am permitted to say." And if he is only permitted to say so much, one might ask by whose authority, or why, just why is that all he's able to say? So there's obviously, he is not as in and himself some almighty power that can do what he wants. He's beholden to certain rules that we are not privy to, at least at this point. So we've got 3 more clues from the realm of the supernatural, and Dale's ring is taken by the giant for safekeeping. It will be returned to Dale when all of these things are confirmed to be true. And the ring and its symbolism is important. It has yet to be revealed, but it will reveal itself at some point, and it will become kind of a eureka type moment down the road. So keep in mind the whole notion of the ring. It'll eventually pop up as we go on. And then the giant also says, "We want to help you," which Dale asks, "Who's we?" Which is a good question. So apparently the giant, if what we can gather from the interaction between him and Dale, he's at least benevolent to some degree, or at least he's not coming across as an entity that's similar to Bob. At least he doesn't come across as a menace. He seems like somebody that wants to help Dale solve the problem and solve the case and find out who the killer really is. So maybe he's there's more to him than meets the eye, but we'll have to find out. We get one final clue, which is Leo locked inside a hungry horse. Apparently there's a clue still left at Leo's house. With that, the giant vanishes, and we're back over to One-Eye Jacks, and Audrey is being approached by her perverted father, who does not realize that it's his daughter there, and he's excited to, sample the goods, so to speak. We have a short scene with Blackie and Jerry Horn, which reveals that she's a heroin addict, and apparently Jerry or Ben is the hookup, or the pusher man, or whatever you want to call it, that provides her with her poison of choice. So she is an addict as far as heroin goes. Audrey manages to find a mask to cover her face, gets her father to leave. Awkward situation averted. I don't know, maybe he was too hot and bothered to recognize her voice, but you thought he might have picked up on that, but maybe not. So we're back with Dale, who's kind of out of it, talking out loud in hopes that the little handheld recorder of his that's on voice activation triggers, and he starts kind of talking about various things as if he thinks he's about to meet his maker, perhaps. He reveals that he indeed is wearing a bulletproof vest. Apparently, a wood tick was crawling up his stomach, and he lifted it up to try to get rid of it, and that's why the lowest of the 3 shots actually bypassed the bulletproof vest. And he does say something here very, very important. So this Twin Peaks series as a whole, a theme that's very important, that will become pivotal at the very end of this season, and that's the notion of fear. As he says, it's not so bad as long as you can keep the fear from your mind. And he kind of says that you can kind of apply that to almost everything in life. So the notion of fear and being able to fight back fear, overcome fear, at least to the mental state, is very important. It isn't so much at the current time, but as we move along, the concept of fear and what will be shown as being fear's opposite are 2 emotional or mental states that have a very strong connection with the otherworldly or the supernatural. Just to let you know to keep that in mind as we go along. Dale realizes that his ring is gone, so now that's kind of confirmation that he's back in the world of the living, the waking world, so to speak. Reinforcements arrive, and Dale gets sent to the hospital. Great comment. Hell of a way to kill a tick. So, Apparently, the gunman now is still unknown. We haven't gotten any further information about the shooter. Lucy gives us a recap of all that happened in the last episode. In case anybody forgot, just a refresher. Don't need to go over it. But we do have some good luck in that Leo was shot in his own living room, because remember, according to the Giant, there is a clue there, so they don't have to worry about getting a warrant to investigate the premises. We see that a big portion of the Packard sawmill went up in smoke due to the fire. Apparently, Shelley managed to get out safely, so she's okay. And then Dale's wandering down the hall and asks, "Is that bag smiling?" as Jacques Renault's corpse is being in a body bag is being carted along. So everyone else kind of gives him just a barely any of a look. It's kind of, it's Twin Peaks and it's Dale Cooper, so it's not that kind of comment isn't out of the ordinary, asking if a body bag is smiling at him. Ronette's still in a comatose, but appears to be slowly either regaining her consciousness or her eyes are opening a little bit, so she's kind of coming about. And there's just a little bit of a teaser as to her current situation. We are over at the Palmers now. Maddie and Sarah Palmer, or Maddie Ferguson, and her aunt are making small talk. And then Maddie mentions a dream that she had. Basically, the only thing she says is that she was looking at this spot on the rug kind of from the same point of view that she currently is while she's sitting. So it's almost like she had a deja vu moment when she looked at the ground and was like, this is exactly what I saw in my dream. Sarah wants to know if it had anything to do with Laura. We don't get any further information at that moment because Leland jumps out and reveals that he's now got a full, thick head of white hair. And, and he's in a pretty good mood. He's singing, so something happened, and his attitude has completely changed. We do know that he did go into the hospital and kill Jacques Renault, so perhaps he thinks that he's done away with and avenged the killer of his daughter, so now all of a sudden, he's on the mend. Perhaps that's what, as much as we could gather, given his change in mood from being kind of wandering around aimlessly and crying all the time to, having a little pep in his step. Sarah chases after him, wondering if he's just become even nuttier than he was previously. And then Maddie sees the outline of some shape appear on the carpet. The carpet changes a little bit of color to reveal it. And I don't know exactly what it's supposed to be. I can make a guess at what it is, but I don't want to... because it isn't confirmed in this episode, I could make a pretty, educated guess as what it was that she saw, but, like I said, I'll let you guys try to figure it out. And apparently that has something to do with her dream, and it freaks her out. She's terrified. So again, maybe something from the other world, or the supernatural, the unknown is making its presence known to her now that she's in Twin Peaks. Remember that her family as a whole is very, you would call, psychically sensitive. So that, who knows what that might lead to. We had the brothers Horn, Ben and Jerry are discussing the aftermath of all that's conspired the previous night with their little criminal conspiracy. And here's Leland again singing that stupid song. He says that he's back and ready. Apparently killing Jacques did wonders for his mood. We're back at Leo Johnson's place now. The birds on the wall there, those kind of like, I don't know, I guess they'd be little bronze statuette figurine things representing, ducks or something, or along the wall. They actually appeared as these shadowy motifs flying through along behind the red drapes of that red room in the Black Lodge that we saw. So that's another image from one of Cooper's dreams that he is reminded of when they go to the crime scene to investigate. Hawk finds a copy of Flesh World and Leo's duster, which smells of gasoline. So his his culpability and his connection with the sawmill fire is pretty strong. Albert and his crew show up, and Andy freaks out. Then engages in some kind of Three Stooges slapstick humor with stepping on a board that comes up and smacks him in the head. Kind of reminds me of Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation when he's up in the attic, locked up there and is walking around, and they have boards across the beams so that they don't step on the insulation and go through the ceiling, and he's getting smacked back and forth. So a little bit of a comedic relief. Albert, he's kind of holding back disgust, but actually, Andy uncovered the location of Leo Johnson's hidden cocaine, which is apparently one of I'm assuming that is one of, if not, the main clue that he was missing, as far as we can tell from what the Giant said. I love that the intro to the Double R where that guy yells out, "Hot damn, that pie is good." I don't know, that always just made me crack up when I see that scene. Donnie meets up with Maddie there. She's brought Laura's sunglasses for some reason. Maddie's worried that what they did is, they were responsible for, James getting arrested, and she's kind of worried about that. Donna seems not all that concerned. Maddie tells Donna that her uncle Leland's hair turned white as a sheet. So just something weird that she passed on to Donna. Norma gives Donna a letter that apparently had arrived for her the previous day, so apparently from someone who did not know her home address. The note inside says, "Look into the Meals on Wheels," and remember that Laura volunteered for the Meals on Wheels program, so she met a lot of different people along the route. Perhaps one of those people on that route wrote to get in touch with Donna. And the log lady doesn't really look like she has the best manners. She's chewing what is actually pitch, like tree pitch. At least that's what I believe is what it's mentioned as pitch gum or something like that. I think, it's bizarre. I don't know. So I guess she's like spitting it out and sticking it on the wall. Yeah, she is a little bit weird, to say the least. Albert and his crew are back. And I guess they're here because they are doing the ballistics and on the gun used to shoot Dale, as well as all the related forensics and work that needs to be done trying to figure out who that is. So that's his main reason for being back, ordered specifically by Gordon Cole to take care of that. He lets us know the preliminary results, or at least his initial assumptions based on what he's been able to figure out, and that is that the shooter is between 5'6" and 5'10", and right-handed. That could be male or female. It doesn't really narrow it down very much. Some good banter with Dale, Albert, and Andy. There's always good when those guys are button heads. It's always good for a few laughs. Andy comes in to let them know that Leo Johnson was locked in a jail in Hungry Horse, Montana. Remember, the Giant said Leo locked in a Hungry Horse, which to us is like, what? So apparently on February 9th, 1988, Leo was arrested and locked in a jail in Hungry Horse, Montana, which actually coincides with Teresa Banks, the date that she was murdered. And Teresa is the victim whose circumstances, and also given that she had a piece of paper with a letter on it shoved underneath her fingernail that was found at the scene, that along with some other similarities led the FBI, I guess, to believe that Laura Palmer's murder might have been committed by the same killer that killed Teresa Banks. So that is the connection between that previous murder and Laura Palmer. So we're going on the assumption that multiple different women in different at least these two women in these different places were killed by the same person. So now apparently Leo has an alibi for the night that Teresa was killed. Doesn't get him off the completely, but it does kind of contradict what Dale, the assumptions that Dale is going on with, as far as there being a connection. And Jacques dead, so we had two guys that were there the night of, along with the deceased, that are now both seem to be far less likely suspects, now that we've had some of these things revealed. And out of the blue, the one-armed man shows up at the sheriff's station, wants to sell Sheriff Truman some shoes. The tape that Donna and James were able to get from Dr. Jacoby's office is played for Sheriff Truman. James mentions the mystery man that at one point we all assumed to be Leo Johnson. James, however, has a different theory, and this is kind of a pivotal point, a very important point in the story where we start moving towards a different focus of inquiry, where the main suspect is concerned as far as the killer. And remember that she said something about this mystery man could light my fire. And James mentions that when they were going out, she sometimes when she was kind of out of her mind, or kind of off into that kind of other headspace that she would drift off into, she would start repeating this this scary spooky poem over and over to James. And it isn't said exactly what the poem is, but I'm pretty sure that it is the mantra for Fire Walk With Me, which is the following. From the darkness of future past, the magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds. Fire, walk with me. And Laura, after that, also was teasing him and kind of goading him and saying, would you like to play with fire, little boy? Would you like to play with Bob? Bob, we've heard that name before. Is this the same Bob that Dale saw in his dreams? So we also, if you recall, there was that piece of paper written in blood at the train car that said "Fire Walk With Me" also. So we've got Laura mentioning this character that Dale also saw in his dream, mentioning the poem, mentioning fire specifically. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff is starting to kind of focus over towards this mysterious character more and more. Dale walks in, demands the other half of the necklace from James, and James is kind of at a loss as to how Dale was able to figure it out so easily that he had it. And now it looks like Dr. Jacoby is back in the picture to some extent or another, even though James is convinced that he didn't have anything to do it, according to what he mentioned in a previous episode. So we got Donna and James, a little sexual tension going on, and on either side of the prison bars, not much going on there. Andy and Lucy also having their odd sexual tension going on, because they have to search for a picture of Teresa Banks, amidst a stack of back issues of Flesh World. So now they need to find some evidence to connect Teresa's situation with what's going on to make, I guess, as a means to establish that link is still valid when it comes to trying to connect the killer to two different crimes. Let's see, Harry and Dale go pay Dr. Jacoby a visit, who, after we recall, was hospitalized after being attacked by a masked person and had a heart attack. So that's why he's there. And this one line that he has when he's talking to him, which goes, as I sat there cursing my lack of horsepower. I don't know why, but I laughed my ass off when he said that the first time. I don't know what it was, just the way he delivered it. And I don't know, my sense of humor, I don't know why. I thought it was hilarious. So apparently Dr. Jacoby saw Donna and James on James's motorcycle after he'd lost Leo's Corvette, because I guess this wasn't the night of Laura's murder. This was afterwards. Apparently, after he had heard the cassette tape mentioning the Corvette, he probably, or that being Dr. Jacoby, was probably on the lookout trying to find Leo Johnson. So it just happened that Leo was driving his vet that night off to wherever. It might have been something to do with, a drug deal, Jacques Renault or something like that. And so apparently he lost the Corvette, but then saw Donna and James come flying by on a bike, or something along those lines, and decided to follow them. So basically his happening upon the other half of the necklace was just one huge coincidence. Jacoby uses the divided heart symbolism as a metaphor for the idea of Laura leading a double life, as it seemed she was almost entirely two different people in how she acted. This is something that I've just discussed previously, so it's not worth really going back into. He does mention, however, that he thought that she'd come to kind of a sort of a peace with herself, and that she actually wanted to die. Maybe it was because she wanted to escape that darkness that was threatening to consume her. James mentioned something similar when he told Donna that before Laura ran off into the woods, she seemed like it was her old self again. So something that we've kind of already known. So just kind of reiterating that. Dr. Jacoby does describe some impressions, at least as far as a smell, when the night that Jacques Renault was killed. I mean, he obviously heard the fire alarm go off, but he describes a smell that specifically he mentions and says that it's the smell of scorched engine oil. And that seems weird, possibly, but that scent is actually very important. That description of that smell. It seems like something, maybe it was like, somebody that, like Ed, Ed Hurley, because he worked at his mechanics shop, and might have come in to visit Nadine after she OD'd on those pills, and maybe that was what he smelled. But now the scorched engine oil smell is something completely different than, or as far as what it has to do with, than just the literal what you would think of. It's another kind of strange thing that pops up later on. Bobby shows up to cheer up Shelley. He does seem to be kind of at an emotional crossroad where he and Shelley is concerned. He does seem like he really is sincere about whether or not he actually loves her or not. Ed tells us the story of how Nadine lost her eye, and Albert gets a great kick out of that. It is kind of funny. Dale finds the smiling bag, so that being the body bag that Jacques Renault was in. So one of the Giant's clues is confirmed. He hasn't been telling us fibs. He's been giving us good info, good intel. And yeah, apparently hospital food in Twin Peaks is really disgusting. It almost looks like oil paints from a tubes that you'd squeeze out onto a pallet to mix together. I don't know what exactly that stuff's supposed to be. Pureed, who knows? So yeah, and from there we go over to the Double R. Just a quick little interaction between Bobby and his dad, Major Briggs, where they actually have an emotional breakthrough of sorts when Major Briggs relays a dream he had about his son. And we put Bobby in a position where he's finally maybe going to have a potential transition in where his character arc is concerned, or maybe he's moving towards a different direction. It's actually a pretty touching moment. I mean, as sappy as it might sound, I mean, it's the first time that we see, actually see some legit emotion from Bobby beyond being the kind of the smart ass teenager that laughs off everything. And it does reveal some more about Major Briggs. He's not just kind of a military guy that is all about kind of that mindset, and that it shows that he's got something going on as well. And Major Briggs will become a more important character as later on in the show. So he's there for a reason. So now we get Dale and everybody back at the sheriff's station. And he's breaking down Laura's, basically her current, the event timeline of what happened to her with the rest of the people based on the new information that we have. I've discussed this in depth, so it's not really worth going over again. There's that traffic signal light superimposed, like I'd mentioned way back, that theme again. We do get a couple new bits of information, that I'll just mention in passing, and that's that both Ronette and Laura were at the train car, but Ronette managed to escape somehow, and that we know that the blood on the paper that spells "Firewalk with Me" doesn't belong to Leo, Jock, Ronette, or Laura. So we've got that mystery third man or fifth person or whatever you want to refer to the person as. The log lady mentioned this person, so we do know that confirm that person exists. Andy shows his extremely sensitive side, and Albert's mocking of him goes a bit too far. So it's nice to see Andy standing up for himself every once in a while. Yeah, alright, let's see. Over at the Martells, Harry breaks the news to Pete that they haven't found any evidence of Catherine having survived. Then an Asian gentleman with a ponytail, looks like he's at the Great Northern, calls asking for Josie, but hangs up when Harry asks who it is, and then he makes a collect call to Hong Kong, so perhaps someone from Josie's past is here. We know that she's been up to no good, so this may just be another part of her plot starting to develop. Hank reports to the brothers Horn that basically he shot Leo, couldn't go into the house because of the patrols, that Josie left town, so apparently she was well aware of all that was going to go down, obviously with her interactions with Hank. We still don't know where Catherine's whereabouts are, but remember, she was with Shelley, and Shelley was and has been seen at the hospital, so we didn't see Catherine at the hospital, so who knows. Still haven't figured out how that whole thing ended as far as their fates are concerned. Apparently, Blackie was not too happy with Audrey's performance with the owner, and was kind of putting her in her place, saying she's not going to put up with her crap anymore. So Audrey is still is starting to probably realize that she may have bitten off a little bit more than she can chew when it comes to playing, Dale's assistant, crime fighting assistant. The Haywards are having some kind of supper club dinner party thing. Donna's sister, two of her sisters, reads a poem while the other accompanies her with piano music, and it's never really described how much of a relationship Laura had with this sister that's reading the poem. So I have never really bothered going too far into any insight or significance in the poem itself. I think it was just something that she wrote. I don't think there ever ends up being anything in there that adds or that helps to shine light upon anything that's gone on. It's just it is what it is. We get some small talk until finally Doc Hayward asks what the hell happened to Leland's hair. Leland says that he apparently woke up with it that way. And when he saw the change, he had felt like he had turned a corner somehow, and that a weight had been lifted from his heart. So I guess I'm assuming the only thing that he did different between the point we saw him before and after was killing Jacques. So Jacques apparently was the number one suspect that Leland felt was the one that had killed his daughter. So apparently in his mind, he's felt he's avenged his daughter, and now he's kind of moved past past that grief point. At least is what we can glean from that. Leland goes up to sing a song, kind of manages to keep his wits together, but eventually kind of breaks down at the end. Kind of goes a little bit crazy at that last part there when he's singing, Get Happy. So maybe he's not as well completely on the mend as he thinks he is. So Dale relays some information to Diane via his voice recorder, and we switch over to Audrey Horn over at One-Eyed Jack's. She's praying that Agent Cooper, will come and save her special agent, asking her if he got the letter, which was what was slid under the door, placed, by the phone before he got shot at the end of last season, so he hasn't read that yet. The giant appears again in his hotel room. Dale mentions that, I'm not dreaming, but I'm pretty sure that he is, because these entities don't reveal themselves, at least in that manner, as far as I can tell, ever, unless, someone's either, almost ready to lose consciousness, or like he was when he was shot, or if they faded into, unconsciousness or dreaming. So I'm not sure. Maybe he was saying that meant to say that, I didn't just dream this, or, it wasn't just a dream of what I experienced actually, manifested itself in the physical sense in the real world. So maybe that's what he meant. He gives Dale some additional advice on how to go about solving the case. He mentions something very interesting, very important, which we don't really maybe have all the information needed to decipher now, but at least from what we have learned so far. But that is, one person saw the third man. 3 have seen him, but not his body. So only one person known to him has seen his body is now ready to talk. So apparently, who is this third man that we've seen? Like I said, we perhaps with the log lady mentioned having there's been someone there. We know her, but she didn't see the actual person. The log did. So otherwise, obviously, if she'd known who it was, she would have identified it. So yeah, it's a bit of an interesting comment there to mull over. A flash of light appears and the giant vanishes. Back at the Twin Peaks Memorial Hospital, Ronette Polanski is having a kind of a bit of an uneasy sleep, and then which kind of transcends into this nightmare vision with Bob and Laura at the train car where she was murdered. Laura is obviously suffering and in pain, and she's got, and Bob's sitting here beating on her. Trying, I don't know if that's, how Laura died, and that's how Ronette's reimagining this whole kind of this flashback of when she was murdered. We see Bob there in person, at least in the dream, with Laura. So, yeah, and it's a pretty cool scene. I mean, just for that little moment, that's pretty horrific especially for a regular broadcast television type show, even though it was an evening program. But yeah, it was pretty well done. I mean, you go from kind of this, it adds extra emphasis to how horrific the whole thing was without having to go over the top. Just a really cool scene, really creepy. Great way to punctuate the end of this very important episode. And the last question on our minds is that the person the giant was referring to, the one known to him that has seen his body that is ready to talk. So is Ronette the one that the giant was referring to? We will have to see. Yep, that about does it. This is a bit of a long one, folks. Like I said, I narrowed it down by watching it and making notes as well as I could. But like I said, it's 90 minutes and it's Twin Peaks, so you really can't do there's no real such thing as a Cliff's Notes Twin Peaks without that isn't somewhat long. But I kept it under 40 minutes. But there's a lot of stuff going on here, so hopefully you enjoyed the review and the re-examination of some stuff. And I'll have this up soon, and I'll get cracking on season 2, episode 2. And I'll see you then. Take it easy.